forward to that being a great event. Even Rick Martin will be there.
Don't judge.
I'd like to also tell everybody on April 21st, Sandy Springs Chamber and Brookhaven Chamber of Commerce, we're going to do an event together, and the luncheon is going to feature the police chiefs of Brookhaven, Dunwoody, and Sandy Springs. So we're looking very forward to that. It should be an exciting event. And and by the way, Fred Andrew, the newest member of the Chamber of Commerce, it's been about 2 years in the making, but he's now a member, official member. So thank you, Fred. And New York Bank, a coastal something. Coastal states. Okay. At this point, I don't want to go on. What I'd like to do is turn the procedures over to the chairwoman of our newest committee, which is Women Business Enterprise. This is something we just started this year, and this is that committee's inaugural kickoff event. And we have a great program for us. So anyway, if Joanne Hayes would step up, so she is going to introduce the speaker. And we appreciate Joanne for getting the speaker. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm really excited about this speaker because we actually met Lisa back in 2014 when we did our first ever Bold Women of Buckhead magazine cover, and we chose 14 incredible ladies that all had fabulous stories behind them, and 9 of the 14 were able to be with us for that special cover. And we hired a stylist and hair and makeup and dressed these ladies up, and I don't think any one of them wanted to get out of the dresses they were in. When it was over, we had a gorgeous cover and a lot of fabulous conversation and really great talent was in that room. So it was special to meet Lisa then, and we've kind of followed each other's careers and lives over the last 8 years since we've met. And I'm very pleased that she's back here in Brookhaven. I've got an official bio here, but I'm just telling all the wonderful things that I know about her personally. Lisa and her husband are people of faith, and they are very involved in their local church, the Buckhead Church. They were residents of Brookhaven and moved to Naples, Florida, and I'm not sure if any of you watch HGTV, but they were actually featured in House Hunters? Twice for their homes in Naples, which was super fun for me. I was scrolling through one day and got to see them on television doing their house hunting in Naples. And they ended up coming back here to Atlanta and live in Brookhaven yet again. So not only is she a business person here in Brookhaven, she's also a resident, which is a really great reason why we're happy to have her here today. So just to read a little bit about her bio, Lisa is a private aviation expert, the CEO and founder of Jet Centers Aviation. With more than 25 years experience in the industry, her journey took off over 2 decades ago when she was instrumental in launching a charter brokerage firm in New York. She's frequently quoted as one of the leading experts in aviation and nationally recognized in the press for her knowledge and expertise. I'm sure she's going to speak about this further, but she's also the orchestrator of a women's group for women in the aviation business, which, as you can imagine, is pretty much a man's world, and she's doing amazing things in that world, so we're very proud of her for that. Lisa is the go-to resource and trusted advisor to CEOs, entrepreneurs, celebrities, and Fortune 100 companies, and her clients depend on her advice and honesty in deals ranging from buying aircraft to structuring complex management contracts, finding charter services when needed. She's a serial entrepreneur, has pursued a variety of interesting careers, and demonstrated the resilience to survive in pursuit of those endeavors, which I'm sure, again, she'll speak more about, as the last 2 years have been very challenging. She's very involved, as I mentioned, in multiple charities and has been named the honoree for JBRF and very active in her faith. She and her husband attend Buckhead Church with her husband Ed and son Eamon. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Lisa Centris McDermott.
Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Joanne, for giving me the opportunity. And thank you to everyone on the chamber. Thank you to everyone that's here to listen to a little bit about what I have to say today. I was asked to speak for Women's History Month. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, so I'm from time to time looking at my notes. But I'm honored to be here, as I said. Today I'm excited to talk to you about what I think is the collective backbone of success of women, and that is resilience. Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly. Ordinary women have extraordinary resilience. I want to share a touching poem with you to start out. There once was a little girl that was told she couldn't do what she wanted to do, but she didn't understand. So she went on to try to do the things that she wanted. She found out she could do these things, but the world didn't see it until it did. When it did, it reacted and agreed. This woman was extraordinary, but she was not. She was just an ordinary woman. She was strong. She could create life. She could work. She could laugh. She could love. She could do amazing things that no one could imagine. This is when a woman goes from being ordinary to extraordinary. But the truth is, she is ordinary, but she is a woman. Raise your hand if any of you have ever known an extraordinary woman. Go ahead, raise your hand. I think we can all say that we all know extraordinary women. I wrote this on March 2nd, and as I was writing it, I saw an Instagram post that came out from President Zelensky's wife. It read, "I will not have panic and tears. I will be calm and confident. My children are looking at me. My children are next to me, and I am next to my husband. And with me," from the Ukraine's First Lady. Wow. I'm in awe of that woman. But the truth is, we're all extraordinary women. To give you a little bit of background on me, you've already heard, I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. I live in Brookhaven with my husband, my son, 2 dogs, and a fish named Philip. I also do a lot of speaking, and I recently appeared on a TEDx talk, which I'm going to share a little bit about with you today. But I wanted to really hone in on women and what makes women so special as a kickoff to this for the chamber. There are many factors I can point to, but women are amazing multitaskers and also amazingly resilient. It brings to mind the famous Angela commercial, "I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in the pan." Well, during COVID, my husband and I decided to move back from Naples, Florida to Atlanta. My husband had a contract job down there, and they didn't renew his contract. As a serial entrepreneur, he's watched me craft my own life and be able to make my own decisions, and he said, "You know what, I think I want to be an entrepreneur." So I said, "Great." He's a brilliant CFO. We thought of a name. We called it My CFO Plan. We bought a URL, got a website, loaded up a truck, and hightailed it back to Atlanta. Just in time for the world to shut down. What? It's a global, fatal pandemic? This can't be happening. But it was. So my husband had no job. I was in aviation. Nothing was flying. Pilots weren't going anywhere. I was lysoling off my eggs and sticking my Amazon packages out overnight. A global fatal pandemic. But let me go back, way back. I want to tell you a story because it is St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. I learned at a young age that women are amazingly resilient. I heard a story when I was young about a woman in County Mayo, Ireland. There was a man in County Mayo, Ireland, right after World War I, around 1919, and his name was John Fitzgerald. He had 7 children, and his wife died in childbirth with the 7. Well, there was a woman named Ellen. She was 18. Her family had no money. John had running water, 7 children, but still a good prospect for marriage because by the potato famine standards, he was considered rich. He had heat, a stove, in a 1-bedroom home with 7 children. So Ellen married John. She went on to have an 8th child. His name was Aiden, and she had a 9th child, and her name was Catherine. Well, when Catherine was 3, her father died, and when she was 7, her mother left to go on a trip. Her mother never went back, so she was raised by her older siblings and brothers. They didn't have a lot of money, as I said, so she did have a dream, though. She couldn't go to school in Ireland because only the boys were chosen to go to school back then. She read a letter when she was about 17, a newspaper article that said, if a woman would go to World War II in the Blitz in London, they could get a degree. They would be housed for free, and they could go. So Catherine, with big, big dreams, and her best friend hatched a plan. They're going to go be a World War II nurse in the Blitz in London. Great. Except the night before she was supposed to leave, her best friend chickened out. So Catherine had a big decision to make at 17 years of age. Do I want to go be a World War II Blitz nurse by myself in a new, totally new environment? I don't know if I can do this, but you know what? She was amazing and she was resilient. And she made the decision to go. She got to London with a few of her belongings and promptly got pneumonia. Incredibly, without penicillin, after a year in bed, she was able to get up and become a World War II nurse and fulfill her dream. She helped soldiers, and she put people back together again, and she studied. And one day, a bus she was on was bombed. She was the sole survivor. She literally crawled out over dead bodies to help people in World War II. Her hospital was bombed one day. Incredibly, she was on vacation. Vacation then was you got to sleep and possibly have a bit of jam. But she made it those 4 years, and the war ended. And incredibly, with a little bag on her lap, she set sail for America to fulfill her dreams of having a better life, getting married, and having children. She had a little crate, you might call it, that she came over to America with. And that crate is proudly displayed in my home now in my living room. You see, Catherine was my mother. She's in heaven now. She died at 82, but I adored her. Excuse me, get emotional. She was amazing. She told me that story over and over again, adding little bits and pieces to it as I aged and age appropriate. She told me she danced and worked all the time. She met soldiers that she went on dates with and never saw them again. It was such a precious time. She said it was very romantic to live back then because, you see, you never knew when you were going to see the person again or not. Often, she never saw her date again. But she never lost that zest for life. She carried it with her to her last day. She was amazing. When she got to America, by this time, my grandmother, Ellen, had settled on 84th Street between 2nd and 3rd in New York City. She had remarried a man named Tom, and my mother knocked on her door and saw her mother for the first time since she was 7. She was promptly given a little space on the floor of their 600 square foot apartment in which to live. She was a nurse and so proud to be. She went to a dance, met an amazing man, fell in love, and that man was my father. She went on to be pregnant 9 times, She lost my brother's twin at childbirth. She had a total of 5 kids, and like Catherine, I'm the youngest of those 5. I tell you this story to tell you that she was considered an ordinary woman. If you met her, she worked 2 jobs most of her life, and you would have just thought she was an ordinary nurse, and she was an ordinary woman, but she was incredible, because as I said, I believe all women are incredible. Whew, that story's always an emotional one, but let me switch gears now. I'll be more business-like in the second half of my speech. As I said, I'm an entrepreneur, and I did a TEDx talk recently. The title was Resilience as an Entrepreneur, but the truth is, all women can call themselves entrepreneurs. If they raise children and run a household, they are extremely skilled and resilient. I want to talk to you a little bit about my TEDx talk. And as Joanne mentioned, right before COVID, I started a group called GOATS, Girls of Aviation Team. It was a simple request I sent out globally to women to see if they wanted to connect during COVID, because of course everybody was isolated. I was astounded when people from Singapore, China, London, all over the globe reached out and said, yes, I want to join your GOAT group. So once a month, we still do it on Tuesday mornings. People get up in the middle of the night in some parts of the world to join this group, and we have a Zoom with the GOATs, Girls of Aviation Team. Well, as I said, I was doing a TEDx talk in January, and I was going out to perform the TEDx talk, getting ready in my room, and there was a knock on the door, and there was a huge bouquet of flowers and a big gift. I opened the card, and it said, there are women from all over the globe cheering you on for your success. Wow, I cried. It was from the GOATs. As I said, growing up, I was the youngest of 5. And I heard many times, why can't you be like the other 4 kids? That was painful, until it wasn't. As a teenager, I loved talking on the phone, but we only had one phone. 5 kids, 2 parents, that's 7 people all vying for time on that one phone. We were also on a very limited family budget. So I worked a lot of jobs as often as I could. Fast forward to the early 80s when I heard about an exciting idea for a portable phone that you could carry around. It only weighed 20 pounds. Only 20 pounds. Well, I happened to know someone who worked in this exciting new industry, and I managed to wrangle my way into a summer job selling portable phones. I went home and told my sweet dad, Dad, I'm going to sell phones. And he said, honey, no one's going to carry a phone. But I followed my intuition and not only made a lot of money that summer, I received a free portable phone. A free phone. Free! A real bonus for someone like me who loved talking on the phone. And I managed to make a lot of commission that summer, much to the surprise of my naysayers. How many of you out there have a portable phone today? I trusted my gut even when I was repeatedly told it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea until it isn't. After working in a lot of different sales jobs, an opportunity to become an early adopter in the internet world presented itself to me. It's hard to imagine now, but back then people actually felt sure there would never be a time where everybody had access to a computer. Well, the opportunity was to be the director of sales for one of the first internet service providers called NetZero. Incredibly, I heard nobody's going to buy advertising for online stuff. For real. How many of you have ever bought anything off Amazon? Like, ever? Once again, I followed my gut, and it turned out to be an amazing career, and one that I worked at 24/7. The stories from back then are all true. I slept in my office, I took the red-eye back from west to east and went straight to work. We even took NetZero public while I was working there. That was really cool. Everything was going along really smoothly, but then I hit a huge detour. My older sister, who I adored, was killed in a tragic accident. It's hard to talk about it now because it ripped me to my core. So I won't go into great detail, but suffice it to say, it took a lot of resilience, help from God, and therapy to finally get up and function again. But this detour, this experience in my life forced me to take stock. There had to be more to life than this, right? And I was committed to have that experience help me be a better person and make the most out of life. I allowed myself at that time in my life the freedom to dream about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. I mean, after all, I had just learned firsthand, again, that life is precious and it can change in an instant. One day around that time, I marched myself into the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I auditioned and surprised myself and everyone I knew, I got in. Well, considered over the hill for an actress already, of course I was told, that's a really bad idea. You quit your job and do this, you'll have no money, no security, really bad idea. I also heard many times no one would quit a hugely profitable career in their 30s to crawl around on stage and act. But that's exactly what I did. And it was exactly what was right for my life at that time. You see, it gave me freedom and it allowed me to heal. If I had asked people if I should audition to get into that school, they would have told me I was crazy. But it was exactly what was right for my life at that time. And, as you might know, entrepreneurs experience an average of 4 failures before success. Resilience is what separates the quitters from those that are successful. I started dreaming a lot and writing down my dreams. I dreamed 2 very interesting, important, and prophetic dreams. In the first dream, I was on a red jet with other women flying through the sky. In the second dream, I stole a diamond. And one by one, everyone I knew came into that dream and told me I had ruined my life. Well, that upset me, and I wanted to know what that dream meant, so I went to a dream interpreter. She told me what the dream clearly meant. That I needed to steal my own diamond, or in other words, live my life for me, and not for others' approval. And that's exactly what I went on to do. Throughout my life, I've always written down my goals. It's a common fact that writing down your goals significantly increases the chance of you achieving them. But it wasn't until recently that I learned that our brains have a reticular activating system that literally helps us focus and achieve our goals. After these 2 dreams, I wrote down that I wanted a career involving sales and jets for a possible future. Well, as a woman, all I had been told I could do in aviation was be a flight attendant. I was a flight attendant for 1 year after college, a job I landed on a dare, and I loved the travel and the planes and the jets. I hated that job. I mean, back then, at 22 years of age, who could imagine that selling jets could be in my future? It was still a very unique thing for a woman to do, or anyone for that matter. I remember taking the newspapers out of the trash, dumpster diving, because, let's face it, I didn't have a job. I was broke and not a good actress, so. But my brain's reticular activating system was kicking into high gear. I saw jets in the paper, I saw jets on billboards, I saw jets flying overhead. I had an idea. Maybe I could book jets that other people owned, kind of like a beach rental. You guessed it. This time people just looked at me like I was really crazy. To their defense, I was broke and out of work, so not a great candidate for success in their eyes. I remember my sweet dad telling me, honey, that's a really bad idea. Nobody flies around on these jets. Well, no one we knew did. Remember that limited family budget? And while not many people had computers, there were books back then similar to Yellow Pages that advertised planes around. I loved to travel and I became fascinated with these jets. I wanted to know everything I could about them. So I went to the library to study up on jets because I didn't have a computer and Google wasn't yet a thing. And I made up note cards and I literally quizzed myself on these jets every chance I got. Who manufactured them? How fast did they go? How many people could be accommodated on them? How much did they cost? I became obsessed. Then I read an article in a newspaper about somebody who had a similar idea, and I reached out to them, and boom, we formed a company with 2 phones and a jet version of the Yellow Pages. Well, a company, we had 2 phones and a jet version of the Yellow Pages. But nevertheless, I cold called thousands of people and companies. I remember a lot of people hung up on me back then, so I would call them right back and say, I'm so sorry, I think we got disconnected, and tell them a joke real fast, try to make them like me. I remember thinking to myself, maybe I need an edge. So I went to the building that housed HBO Travel, and I dropped off my business card and some homemade brownies. You might be thinking to yourself, how can brownies be an edge in the jet world? But guess what? It worked. Bingo! HBO Travel took my call. I believe everyone has a secret weapon, and some of mine are my interest in people and empathy. I mean, let's face it, I have been down a dark alley. I think some of you might be able to relate. As Brene Brown would say, that experience made me vulnerable, and it allowed me to connect with people on a really deep level. The truth is, at my core, I love people, and I find everybody's different walk of life fascinating. And I think on all those phone calls that came through, I was being authentic, and I cared. I was finally doing something that I was passionate about. And then, after all those phone calls, after all that studying, after all that rejection, I finally got my shot with Janet Jackson as my first client. Woo! I also landed Michael Crichton and Kevin Bacon. Once I got 1 or 2 clients, the word about me spread and spread. I made it my practice to meet them on the plane with a small thank you and brownies, and they loved it. That's a good life lesson. Brownies go a long way. The rest is pretty much history. I took flight with my following of entrepreneurs and celebrities and all types of successful people. My reputation in the industry grew, and in time I was recruited away. I was hired to help start and launch an entrepreneurial startup company called Marquis Jet, which is exactly what I did. We eventually became part of Warren Buffett-owned NetJets, and I served as Warren Buffett's senior vice president for 10 years. Working for Warren Buffett's company gave me a great platform from which to launch my own company, which is exactly what I did in 2010. It's called Jet Centers Aviation, after my last name. Today, I have a company, as I said, that specializes in helping people buy, sell, manage, and charter planes. I needed an extra bit of runway, but hey, I'm a good company. Colonel Sanders didn't start his first KFC franchise until age 62, and Henry Ford had 3 failed businesses before starting the Ford Motor Company at age 53. So along my life travels, I've done many things and experimented with many, many things, and I still do. I invented a lipstick container, I wrote a few television shows, I sold one to HBO, and despite being told I'm not acting material, even it landed on a few national television shows too. Now that was fun. But most proudly, I got married to the man of my dreams at age 47, and I became a mother to the most amazing child at age 50. I've grown so much along my life's journey that I don't even hear the naysayers anymore. And if I do hear them, it just serves as fuel to push me on. So what have we learned here today? We know not to ask permission. We know to trust our gut. We know that dreams can be prophetic. And we know that life is precious and a whole lot of fun. And we definitely know if you're a woman, you're extraordinary. So let me leave you with one thought. If you're a woman listening to this, please know you are extraordinary. Take a few minutes in the coming days and write down all the things that you've done that are simply amazing. There'll be a long list. As the title of one of my favorite books declares, you're born an original, don't die a copy. So let me leave you with this one thought. Go dream big, whatever that dream is, and steal your own diamond. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I'd love to take some questions. Yes, sir.
Have you ever been a pilot or ride it quite a bit and see?
No, I can barely drive. Yeah.
Lisa, do you fly private when you travel, or do you travel?
I fly private, some, and I fly in the middle seat in Delta like everybody else does. I love Delta.
So the times that you failed, how long did it take you to build yourself back up?
The times that I fell?
Yeah.
I've fallen a lot in my life. As I said, entrepreneurs experience an average of 4 failures before success, and there's many things I've tried. But I'd rather try something and fail than not try something at all. I tell my 10-year-old now, failing is your first attempt in learning. And we're also hard on ourselves when we fail, but actually that really is the best way to learn. It really depends on what the fail is, right? When my sister died, she was my best friend. It was really tragic, and it took a good 2 years for me to really want to function. People have lost people, there's something that's called survivor skills. It's hard to go on. But now I feel her presence everywhere. And that, the gifts that came with that, just appreciating life. I'm profoundly affected by things going on in the world and around me, like Ukraine right now. I can't turn my head away. It's just so, those people are incredibly resilient. Those mothers and children and husbands and fathers. And it's just amazing what's going on over there. And I think it's just a good lesson to live your life to the fullest because, let's face it, none of us ever know. We're all going to depart one day. So we might as well make the best of it while you're here. But I've loved my career. It's been amazing. I am proud. But another little story is, my dad was like, that's a dumb idea. That's never going to work. He loved me dearly. And he died 2 years after my mom, and we went to his funeral. Everybody in the room came up to me and said, hey, your dad showed me pictures of you and Warren Buffett. You're the one that worked with Warren Buffett. He couldn't have been prouder. So just so people tell you can't do something. I don't know, my personality made me want to do it more. Yes?
We are thrilled to have you here in Brookhaven, and after traveling all over the world, which you no doubt have at this point, are so excited that you've chosen to settle here in Brookhaven. So would you mind sharing with us some of what attracted you to Brookhaven as what we hope will be your final destination?
Oh, yeah. So, as I mentioned, we lived in Naples, Florida, and my husband did have other opportunities there, but we prayed about it and thought about it and decided that we wanted to move back because Atlanta and Brookhaven, with all of its, does have some issues, but there's amazing opportunity here. This is where I started my company. I mentioned to you, my husband started a company called My CFO Plan. He's a fractional entrepreneur. It grew incredibly quickly and is super successful. I don't think it would have been that successful in Naples. It's just entrepreneurs have an amazing opportunity here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's very supportive of entrepreneurs, and business is thriving here. And people are still moving here, and we love it. I knew that there was more opportunities for my 10-year-old too. He goes to St. Martin. We're hoping to go to Wesleyan next year. And yeah, so we just think it's a great place to live. And we're in, on that lake is just beautiful. So I'm very excited because we just moved there a couple months ago.
Well,
Thank you.
Any more questions? I appreciate you.
Yes.
So from all your business, how do you know when you have failed and you need to move to the next one? How do you know it's time to quit this one and then move on?
I don't know. I think everything that I did brought me to another level. Like I said, when my sister passed away, I was making an extraordinary amount of money at a very young age, being the director of sales of one of the first internet service providers. But something in me told me that I needed to do something else. So I auditioned for the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I got in, but I was never a good actress. I could never remember my lines. It was not a good fit for me. But that experience allowed me to get on stage and crawl around and act like a cat, which gave me courage to do this with you today. Like everything that you did, although I didn't succeed, I would never, know, I don't really categorize it as a failure. It was just a phase of my life that brought me to the next level. And I didn't make any money while I was doing it, none, zero, none. But that also gave me resilience. And, you know, I picked newspapers up. I lived in New York, and I would go and get the newspapers out of the basement. And, you know, I made do. It was a thrilling, exciting time, even though I wasn't making any money, and I wouldn't change that for anything. So I don't think anything you try is really a failure. I think it just brings you to the next level.
How did you know, being with Warren Buffett, that seems like everyone's final dream to do. You had an opportunity, I'm sure, to stay there. What was the process that made you give that up to start your own business?
I became a mother at 50. And I could no longer, you know, if Warren or my boss said, we need you in Ohio on Wednesday, you might be back next Monday, I really couldn't afford the luxury of that. And it was scary because I didn't know what was going to happen, but the truth is, a lot of my customers came with me and followed me, and I think I learned a lot of lessons there. Just be good to your people, always have integrity, treat everyone right, and it was miraculous because it was successful really quickly. The brownies. It's a life lesson. Brownies go a long way. You know, honestly, I think being a woman has helped me in my career because, you know, I had a lot of attention and PR and things like that I wouldn't have gotten probably if I was male. And I think that women, of course, are amazing salespeople and nurturing, and has helped my relationships with the 99% of my clients that are men. And also, I was the only woman at Luncheon that did what I did. Of course, everybody else was married and had kids by that time. I was still single and flying around working my butt off. So my family dream came later in life for me.
We appreciate you. Any more questions? We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Barbara Barber. Barbara Barber.
Please hold your applause. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay. I need business cards for these great door prizes, so if you haven't given me your business card, please do. Business cards. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.